once you've installed the Homebrew channel on your Wii, you'll want to be able to load your games from a USB drive. So let's install and set up USB Loader GX. Hi and welcome to Bytes and Bits. The Nintendo Wii is still a great gaming platform, and that's especially if you soft mod it and install a package called Homebrew, which lets you then run a range of third-party applications. Now, if you haven't already soft modded your Wii, then please do check out my installation tutorial, which I'll put a link to in the description down below. But once you've soft modded your Wii, that then opens it up to becoming a true retro gaming platform. We can install various emulators, and the Wii will emulate everything up to and including the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1. But of course, the main thing that people want to soft mod their Wii for is to be able to play game backup files from their USB drive. So these game backup files can either be files that you've created yourself from your own disks, or perhaps you might want to go out and find some elsewhere on the internet. And it's this idea of creating a USB loader that we're going to be looking at in this tutorial. So the USB loader that we're going to be using is USBLoaderGX. So this is an application that runs inside Homebrew, and basically you put your game backup files onto a USB drive, and this USB loader will then load them from there and then pretend to the Nintendo Wii that you have the game disc plugged into the DVD drive, and you can then play really any game that you can get hold of a backup file for. So let's have a look at how we can install and set up USB Loader GX on our Nintendo Wii. Now, you are of course going to have Homebrew already installed onto your Wii, so do check out that previous tutorial on how to set all of that up. Now, in the tutorial I also show you how to set up the custom iOSs, and we do need to install custom iOSs 248 to 251, but again that's all covered in that setup video. Now, you're also going to need a USB drive to actually store your game and data files. Now, you can actually use either a USB thumb drive or a USB enabled hard drive, and I would recommend an SSD drive with a USB adapter. We're going to be downloading quite a few games, and each of these Wii games, or indeed the GameCube games we'll be looking at later, can be a couple of gigabytes each, so we're very quickly going to be getting up to a few hundred gigabytes worth of games. So this USB drive does need to be formatted as an FAT32 drive with either a 16 kilobyte or 32 kilobyte cluster size. Now, if you're not sure how to do that, then do please again look at my previous tutorial where we use a partition manager program just to make sure that we get that absolutely compatible with our Nintendo Wii. So now that we've got everything ready, we need to get hold of a few pieces of software and also then prepare our SD card and our USB drive. So first off, all of the links I will put in the description down below, but a lot of these you can get from this Wii Hacks Guide, which you can find at this address here. So if you go to the site navigation, you'll find links off to the various bits and pieces that we need. But if we then go across to the USB Loader GX download, so that's on this website address here, which again you'll get a link to from the USB loaders section in the Wii guide. But just simply scroll down here, and eventually we'll come to downloading the zip file for that. So we'll just download that zip file and save it onto your PC. And really what we're going to do is we're going to download a range of applications down onto our PC, and then install them all in one go onto our SD card. So we've got the USB loader. The next one we need is the Wii Backup Manager. So again, that's coming from the Wii guide page. So again, just simply scroll down there. There is a Wii Manager link there, and just download that zip file as well down to our PC. Those are the files we really need to get the USB loader up and running, but it's also then we need to make it a bit easier to use. So we're going to want to install a channel on our Wii home screen that lets us get into our USB loader more easily. So for that, we're going to need to install what's known as a WAD file. So again, use this link here. So this isn't linked to from the Wii guide. So you just do make sure you check out the links down below. Or of course, go across to the main project page on my bytesandbits.co.uk website for all of this information and a bit more detail. So down here, just simply come down. There is a download link here. So just simply download this WAD file. And again, save that onto our PC. Now, WAD files, you need a WAD manager to be able to install those. So again, we're going to use this YAWMM mod file, so yet another mod manager, I guess it's called. So if we just scroll down here, again, there is a download file here. So this is a homebrew application again. We're just going to download that zip file, and that then is ready for us to use in there. So that's all the software we need. Now we need to get hold of some games. Now, as usual, I can't tell you directly where to get these files, but there is a lot of helpful information on Vim's lair, so just search online for that. Now, just make sure you are aware of your local copyright laws, as most of the software that you're going to find is still under license. So unless you're backing up your own game disks, you could be breaking those laws. Now, the files we need to be in WBFS format, or then raw ISO file dumps. You can use other Dolphin emulator file formats, but you will need to convert them before we can actually use them on our native Wii hardware. So now that we've got all of our files downloaded, we need to get those onto our SD card and USB drive. So on this one here, I've got my PC folder here with all of our downloaded files. And on this side, I've actually got my SD card out of my Wii, and that's plugged into my PC. So I'm looking at the root of that, and you can see that we already have an apps folder in there, which has got the apps that we used to install the Homebrew. So what I want to do is now copy across these apps as well. So USBLoaderGX, if I open up that zip file, I'll say I have an app folder in there. So I just need to copy that app folder onto the root of my SD card, and that will integrate that app into my system. So again, if I have a look in here, you'll see I now have a USBLoaderGX folder. So back up to my root. I need to do the same with our WAD manager file. So again, that is a Homebrew app. So I just simply copy across the apps folder onto the root of my SD card. Our WAD file then needs to be handled slightly differently. So on my SD card, I need to make a new folder, and I need to call that WAD. And then I need to grab my WAD file and actually drop it into that WAD folder. So I should then have in my apps folder, my USBLoaderGX, our WAD manager, and then in my WAD folder, that WAD file itself. So that's my SD card prepared now. So we now need to get our game files copied across onto our USB drive. And we're going to do that using this Wii Backup Manager, because that's going to correctly format and file our game files so that they can be picked up by our USB loader. So what we need to do here is we need to just simply extract the archive. If I just extract it onto a folder where in this folder here, so we should find that popping up in a second. And there we have our Wii Backup Manager extracted files. If I go in here, you'll find that there are two executable files. And again, for Windows, for 32-bit Windows and 64-bit Windows. So I'm on 64-bit, so I'm going to run the 64-bit version. So once the application pops up, make sure you have your USB drive connected. And let's make sure that that then becomes our actual drive number 1. I'm going to select drive number 1. From my list, I'm going to pull down and I'm going to select the drive where my USB drive is. It will give you a warning if this is a brand new drive that there's no WBFS folder there. So let it create that for you. And this is where it's starting now to turn this into our Wii game drive. So we need to copy across some games now. So if we go to the Files menu and then click on Add, some files, we can now go off and find some game files. And again, these need to be in our WBFS format or our .iso format. So all I need to do here is I need to select that file and open it. Once that comes up, you can see that it has now identified that file for me and it's given it this game ID. So these game IDs are important because they allow the USB loader to identify that file and then download our media files. So I need to transfer that across onto my disk. So I just simply check it that that's the one I want to transfer across. I then click on transfer and transfer to drive 1. And then we should find that starts to transfer that file across and file it correctly in the correct folder structure on our USB drive. So let that run through and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. So I've actually gone ahead and copied a few more games across, just so you can see sort of what we end up with. So again, you can see here, I'm looking now at my drive 1, which is my SSD hard drive. And you can see that we have our games copied across, and each of those has been identified by our software. If we actually go and have a look at the file structure there, you'll see that on our hard drive, we now have this WBFS folder. And again, that's where USB Loader is going to look for our game files. Inside that, we then have each of the games has been put into its own correctly named folder with its ID number. And then inside each of these folders, you'll see that the file itself has been given a code name and the WBS extension. So that makes sure that USB Loader is able to find and identify each of these game files so that it can then log them into its user interface. And as you'll see in a bit, we're going to be then downloading some box art so that our interface looks a lot better. So again, that's why we use the Wii Backup Manager rather than just simply copying the WBFS files across onto our hard drive. So that's our SD card and our USB drive all prepared. Let's go and plug those into our Wii and get set up at that end. So back on the Wii, I've plugged the SD card into the front SD card slot, and I've got my SSD USB drive plugged into USB port 0 on the back of the Wii. So on the back of the Wii, you'll find there are 2 USB slots, and port 0 is the one closest to the edge of the console. So once we're all set up, then we come into the Homebrew channel and start that up. And we should find, once that starts, that we have a couple of extra applications on our menu. So there we have our USBLoaderGX and our YOM WAD Manager. So we're going to set up the USBLoaderGX first. So select that and then load that application. Now, one of two things is going to happen. Either it's going to work correctly, or it's going to do what's happening to me here. It's not actually recognizing my hard disk drive. So you can see it's saying that it's waiting for the hard disk drive to boot up, but that's not going to happen. It isn't actually recognizing it. So we're going to have to do a little bit of a fix here to get that up and running. Now, obviously, for some of you then, of course, this will just come straight through and you'll drop straight into the game menu. So let's just sort this issue out now. So when we come in here, you can see that down the bottom, it's saying that we haven't got any USB drive recognized. And we now have gone into what's known as channel mode. So all of these listed games here are actually the channels from our main Wii homepage. So let's get this sorted out then. So if we go into our settings page, we first of all just need to check that our loader is actually using the right custom iOS. So these are ones that we installed earlier on. So our loader iOS should be set to 249, and that will then allow it access into our USB hard drive. So come back out of there. We then need to go into our hard drive settings. And you can see at the top here, our game or install partition has not been initialized. So if I select that with my A button, you'll see that it has now recognized that we have our FAT32 formatted USB hard drive plugged in. So we should be able to start using that now. Now, one thing I found as well in here is turning on multiple partitions seems to make it recognize it a bit more frequently on startup. So I just turn that on. I'm not entirely sure if that does make a difference, but it seems to for me. But then if we come back out of this and come back again into our system, you can see that we now have our hard drive has been recognized. Now we are still in channel mode. So it's listing the wrong things. So our next job then is to fix that. So across the top, we have a number of menu buttons, which will give us a different home screen view here. And one of those is our settings for which titles we can see. So at the moment, you can see that we are not yet showing Wii games. So let's turn that on. It will be showing GameCube games, but it's also showing our NAND channels. So these again are the internal Wii channels. So let's turn that off. So we're just concentrating now on games. So if I say OK for that, we should now have a list of the games which I installed onto my hard drive. So everything is now up and running. We're now working from our hard drive, and all of these games should work. But you can see here at the moment, our interface is using this sort of holding image at the moment. We don't actually have any actual box art downloaded. Now, there are a number of ways of doing this, and the easiest way is to have your Wii attached to the internet. So again, if you followed through on my previous tutorial on setting everything up, we did rely on having an internet connection for that. So that should now be in place. And all we do simply here, and again, if you find when you load other games in you're missing box art, you simply find a piece of box art where there isn't any image yet, you click on it, and that should then offer to download this cover art for you. So again, just you can restrict it down to certain types here, but I just generally just leave everything ticked and then click on OK. And what that will do, it will now go off onto the internet and try and download the box art for our games. And you can see here I've got quite a few missing files, so we'll actually cover all of the games I have loaded. It will cover any of the missing files from those and just download them. So let's click on yes for that, and that should now go off and start downloading everything. So once that's all downloaded, we can just save our list, and we should now find that all of our games have some nice box art just to make our interface look a bit better. Now again, there's different ways in which we can have our games listed. So at the moment we are in this list mode, which is a little bit more awkward to use. So there are some other ones at the top here. So if we click on this one, you can see we now have sort of like a matrix of our games, and we can sort of scroll over to the side here and have sort of like a wall of box art. Or one of the ones that I like using is the carousel view, where we have this sort of carousel of game titles which spin round. So each of these games now should be playable, and again this is going to be playing it directly off our USB drive. So let's go into a game and just make sure everything is actually working. And there we have Mario Kart up and running. So everything is now set up for us to be able to actually play our games. But one of the issues we'll find at the moment is if I press the home button to get out of this game, and then say I want to go back to my Wii menu, and say yes to that, that will actually take me all the way back out to the main Wii home screen. So if I want to now play a second game, when that comes up, I do have to actually go through the whole process of going into Homebrew channel, starting that up. Then once that starts up, we can then click on our USBLoaderGX and load that in, and we should then be back into our game settings again. So there we are. So we need to make that process a little bit easier, and this is where the WAD and the WAD Manager come into play, where we're going to set a custom channel on our Wii home screen that not only lets us get into our USB loader directly from there, but we'll also see in a second that we can actually get it when we exit a game to take us straight back to this screen. So let's get that set up. So if we come back out of USB Loader and come back into our Homebrew channel, we can now come down to our WAD Manager and select that, and then load that in. So once that starts up, you can see that it's now asking me to select the source device. So this is the device where I saved that WAD file inside the WAD folder. So if I have saved it onto a different drive, I can of course use my left and right keys to select the drive that I put it onto. But obviously I've saved it onto my SD card, so I can press the A button here to select that. It then gives me a list of WAD files that it's found, and you can see there that we have the USBLoaderGX selected. So if I press A to select that one, it's now asking me what action I want to take. So you can see there that my action at the moment is to install the WAD, so I can press A to continue and install that. That just takes a few seconds just to run through. And once it's finished the installation, I can just press any key to continue. And now if I want to come out of here, I can just press the home button, and that should take me then back and to my front screen. Okay, so we should now have a new WAD installed, which should give me my USB loader as a channel. So if I press home again, and then come out to my system menu, which is my main Wii menu, we should find on here, once it comes up, that we now have our USBLoaderGX now as an application on our main Wii screen. So instead of having to go through the Homebrew channel, I can just simply click on this now, and that should take me directly into my USBLoaderGX. And that's now dropped us directly into our game screen. So from here, we did say that when we exit a game, that takes us to the Wii Home menu, but we can actually change that place. So if we come back in here and go to our loader settings, and then come down in this menu until we get to the Return To section. So at the moment that is turned off, so it will just simply return us out to the Wii menu. But we can just select that, and it now gives us a list of applications we want to drop back into. So we could have it drop back into the Homebrew channel, or of course the one I'm going to choose is to drop me back into my USBLoaderGX so that I can then choose another game. So if I click back on that, and back again. So if I now start up a game, so we're back into the game. If I now press the home key to get me out of the game, and I say Wii menu, so it will still say Wii menu here, but hopefully when I click on that and say yes, instead of taking me out to the Wii main menu, it will now take me straight back into my USB loader. And once that comes back up again, then I should have my full list of games, so I can go off and play the next title that I want to. So, that's USBLoaderGX all set up and ready to play all of your Wii games. The next step for me is to set it up so that I can then play some GameCube games as well, but we'll have to save that then for the next video. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please do click that like button and subscribe to the channel. I look forward to seeing you again in another video very soon, and bye for now. For more games programming, electronics projects and retro gaming, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my website.